Alright friends, so in this particular skill, what we're going to be doing is focused on the creation of access control lists, otherwise referred to as ACLs. Now these ACLs are ultimately made up of ACEs, these are access control entries, and these are effectively different types of rules that you can implement within your network. So what type of rules are we talking about? Well, there are two main things that we really have to know about. One is the permission of particular traffic, that is allowing it to traverse the network. And the other one is to deny that traffic. Quite self-explanatory. If you deny it, you're not going to allow it to pass. Now, as we're going to learn when we explore the command line, there are different factors that we can actually select when creating these rules. We could say, for example, we want to specify a particular IP address. So that would mean that, this could be a source IP address, basically where a packet is originated from, or we could specify the destination where it's going to. And in some cases, we can actually specify a combination of both. What do I mean when I say that? Well, what we could do is we could say, hey, if you see a packet sourced from a particular address, let's maybe say of the address 192.168.1.1, and it's going to the destination of, let's maybe go with the IP address 1234, you can match on that particular packet and then effectively decide, are you going to allow it to pass, i.e. permit it, or are you wanting to drop that packet and deny it? Now essentially, this here would be an example of an ACE, an access control entry within the list. Now the list here actually follows a numerical system, and as we're going to see, these numbers are really quite important. In fact, they're very often referred to as the sequence number. This is because this is the sequence in which something will be evaluated. So kind of imagine you wrote down a list of tasks. So you had task 1, task 2, task 3 and task 4. So the first task is to successfully wake up and get out of bed. The next task is maybe to make coffee. The next task maybe is to do some yoga if you're being very, very healthy. And the next one is to actually do work. Now, the numerical values here actually tell you the order in which things are going to happen. This thing here is going to happen before we attempt to make coffee, before we attempt to make yoga, or attempt to make yoga, before we attempt to do yoga, and before we attempt to do any type of work. Same thing is true effectively in these access control lists. So in our list, you will see particular sequence numbers, such as sequence number 10, and then we specify a particular rule. And then after that, we can have yet another sequence number, let's say 20, and then another rule follows. What we are able to determine here is that in the case of the ACL, the rule evaluated at sequence number 10 will be evaluated before sequence number 20 happens. Now the reason why this is very, very important is very often you will have what appear to be conflicting access control entries. What do I mean when I say that? Well, let's say we're going to permit traffic from the IP address of 192.168.1.10. So that will be the source IP address. And if it's destined for the IP address of 10.0.0.10, then hey, this is something that's going to be allowed. And then immediately after, we could have another rule just saying, hey, I want you to deny any IP traffic. So as you can imagine, the order here is very, very important. If, say, for example, a device happened to look at this rule first, then any traffic, including traffic sourced from this IP address going to this IP address, would actually be denied. But in the case here, because this one has a lower sequence number, it's going to be evaluated if we do see a packet that matches on this, so that it actually is coming from 192.168.1.10 going to 10.0.0.10, then it will be permitted. However, for any other IP traffic, that is going to be blocked and denied. Now, if this is your first introduction into access control lists, this might seem a little bit counterintuitive. Do not worry, once we actually see the examples within this skill, things should really start to make sense. Now, one last point I really want to hammer home here. Whenever you happen to create an access control list, even if you don't define it yourself, at the very, very bottom, there is what is known as an implicit deny statement. This is a rule that automatically is going to be set at the bottom of the access list, i.e. the last thing that is evaluated, and it's going to act in a type of defensive manner. Essentially, it's going to deny any other traffic that you have not specified within your access control list. So what that means is that if you happen to create an access control list that has ACEs that are only deny statements, what you're essentially going to do is actually block all of the traffic entirely, because even after your deny statements, you will have that automatic implicit deny all statement built in. So really, when it comes to creating access control lists, the main purpose here really is, as the name does suggest, it's all about being able to control traffic throughout your network, what is allowed to pass and what should ultimately be blocked. We can block things based on things like IP address. That could be IPv version 4, it can be IPv version 6. We can specify particular port numbers if we want to be very specific, or if we want, we can target particular protocols, such as, we don't want to allow any ping messages in our network. All of this can be specified via our access control lists. So really, with that little preamble out the way, I think the best thing for us to do is really just to get hands-on and see the creation of these access control lists for real. So how about we do that in the very next video?